Hey there, today we're actually going to learn something very important. It's a reason why sometimes eating too little calories is actually going to break you down, and it may be the reason why you may not be seeing results. But first, we have to understand a little bit about metabolism before we actually get started on that. So today I wanted to take a few minutes out of your time to explain this concept, so hopefully you get a better understanding and a better grasp of what we're trying to do with your nutrition through this nutrition coaching process to optimize the way your body is functioning at this point. If you struggle right now with the fact that you're just eating too little calories and you're like, well, I'm working out a lot, I'm exercising, I'm trying to eat clean and all these different things, one of the problems you're gonna find is like you're just not seeing the progress happen. And this could be a couple of things. One is just a lack of awareness, and number two, sometimes it's just because of the fact that your metabolism may be slightly damaged, and we need to fix that. First, like I said, let's try to understand in this part one of this video series, how does metabolism work? When we're trying to calculate your calories, there's a few things that we're always considering. Number one, we're trying to figure out what your total caloric expenditure is at a resting state. This is what we call your resting metabolic rate, which is actually what I wrote in here, okay? And today, by the way, we're gonna be talking about metabolic adaptation. That's exactly what this is. Now, resting metabolic rate is the amount of calories your body is using on a resting state. So if you were sitting down on a chair or laying down for 24 hours a day, this is the minimum amount of calories according to your weight, your height, and many other different things that technically your body is needing just to survive and to thrive, okay? Now, this number, it's actually a lot higher for a lot of people compared to really what they think. So most people can actually range from some of the athletes that I worked with on the very high end up to like 2,500 calories, down to some people that, you know, is usually more average, anywhere between 1,200 to 1,800 calories. Again, this is resting. So let's just, for examples and for the sake of this, let's say that you are somebody that has a resting metabolic rate of, let's say, 1,500 calories. Again, this is the person, this is you on a resting state, not doing absolutely anything at all, okay? So this is just resting, and that's what we call RMR. There are places in which we can measure this indirectly through connecting you to a tube and measuring the amount of oxygen and carbon dioxide, or the CO2 that you're expiring. When you're breathing air, it's oxygen. When you're breathing out, it's a byproduct of metabolism, which is called CO2 or carbon dioxide. By looking at those two different gases, we can estimate how much calories your body is burning on a resting state. And that's how most of those equations that you'll find, those calculators online that are trying to calculate how many calories you need, that's exactly what they're using. They're using those equations in where they looked at a bunch of different people, they measure them using those methods, and they essentially created an equation based on all these data points that they received. So that's how you calculate your resting metabolic rate. So let's say for you, let's say that's 1,500 calories. We're good there, right? Great, let's move on. Second thing, we have to also understand that your body is a changing machine. You're just not sitting down on a bed for 24 hours a day. You move, you eat, you do all kinds of different things. So there are other factors that affect that and that add on into your total caloric intake on a daily basis. One of those things, we call it TEF, or thermic effect of food. Usually about 10% of the total calories your body needs on a daily basis, again, I'm gonna put this in here, 10%, it's coming from just you digesting food. You eating a piece of bread, you eating some protein, things like that, you know, they influence the amount of calories your body is needing on a daily basis. So that's one thing that you always have to consider. So if that's 10%, so 10% of 1,500 calories, that's about 150 calories extra that we're adding into the whole mix, okay? That's number two. Then number three, we go into what we call non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or let's just call it for short, NEAT. NEAT is everything else that happens that is not exercise, but it's everything that you're doing when you're not sitting down or resting. This includes things like moving your hands, these things, for example, like thinking and walking to your car and getting up, or, you know, getting out of bed, things like that that require extra amount of energy for your body to use in order for you to, you know, exert a lot of these functions. Again, this is called NEAT, and sometimes that can go anywhere, depending if you're a very active person or not, anywhere between 10 to 30% extra of calories on a daily basis. So that's just gonna find somewhere in between, let's say maybe 20% of that. So that's another 300 calories extra that your body is using without you even including exercise at this point. You following me so far? I hope so. Again, we have resting metabolic rate, that's the base. Then we have our thermic effect of food, that's the calories your body's using just to digest foods that you're consuming. Then we got 3 non-exercise activity thermogenesis, what we call NEAT. And then we got number 4, which now this part's come to exercise. This is the actual amount of calories your body is using when you're not, or when you're actually doing activity or exercise that is voluntary. You going on stepping on a treadmill, you're doing CrossFit, you're actually lifting weights, things like that. That accounts for that, and that can be another 10 to 40% extra of calories depending on how intense your workouts are going to be. For the sake of it, let's say that's an extra 10%, and that's what most people are actually going to see depending on the type of exercise. So if you're doing maybe like 30 minutes of cardio and maybe a little bit of resistance training, that's gonna be about 10% of that, give it or take. So that's another 150 extra calories. When you add all of that information, and when you add all of these numbers, that's what's going to give you is, let's actually do the math real quick, try to help me out. So we got 300, and then we got 1600 or 600 more. So we got about 2100 calories. This, theoretically speaking, is the amount of calories your body needs to stay comfortably where you're at. And honestly, these numbers right here are pretty representative, for example, for women, sometimes for men as well. So yes, I am telling you that if you are consuming less than that, of course, that technically would represent weight loss. But just for the sake of this conversation and understanding really what total caloric expenditure is, your body technically needs about this many calories for somebody that is active throughout the day, that kind of move around and do some slight exercise. So you have an understanding of how we calculate nutrition needs according to your activity levels and many other different things. That's why when you're looking at those calculators online and you're trying to understand how many calories you need to be consuming, it needs to be so personalized, and that's why most of them are not ideal, or they don't really personalize this for you very well. So that's why sometimes working with a coach that can calculate this like we're doing now definitely can help you take this to the next level, because we can personalize this information a lot to you. And second part, now we're gonna talk about how we manipulate this for either weight gain, whether you're trying to increase muscle mass, or weight loss. So check out in the next video how we can talk about this specifically and how we can manipulate that to help you achieve your goals.